everyone, welcome to our first video about macromolecules. We're going to be talking about the things that make up life. So if you've ever stopped and wondered, what makes up my body? What makes up living things? Well, here's going to be your answer. Let's first start with talking about just what even is a molecule in general. Well, a molecule is when you have several atoms held together by bonds. And you've already seen the molecule water, which is two hydrogens held together to an oxygen. Those are covalent bonds because they're sharing electrons. But like I said, two or more atoms of different elements bonded together make up a molecule. Now, we're not just going to talk about molecules, we're going to talk about macromolecules. And what do you think that macro part means? What would be different about a macromolecule as compared to a molecule? Well, there are four biological macromolecules, which are proteins, nucleic acids, carbohydrates, and lipids. And they're basically just giant molecules. So back here, you could see kind of smaller molecules, like water only has three atoms. But if you look at a macromolecule or a giant molecule, you can see that it's made up of very many atoms, which each of these circles represents one of those atoms. So, which elements are in our macromolecules? Well, we use the acronym CHNOPS. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but CHNOPS stands for carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. And those are the six key ingredients to our macromolecules. Different arrangements of those six atoms, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur, will make up our macromolecules. So, which one of those do you think is the most important to all living things? Have you heard of this before? Well, it's actually carbon. Carbon's the most important of all of the elements that make up our macromolecules. And you might ask, why? Why carbon? Why is that so important? Well, carbon can bond to four other atoms at once, or up to four other atoms. And it can bond to a lot of other carbon atoms, which can end up making long chains of carbons or even possibly rings. And so there can be many different molecule shapes based in carbon. And if you go on to college and you decide, like I did, to take organic chemistry, you will spend your entire semester or year talking about the bonds that carbon can make to create different molecules that will build on each other to make macromolecules and help living things survive. Now, let's get back to this idea of macromolecules. Macromolecules occur when large compounds, which are called polymers, built by joining up smaller molecules, which are called monomers. Together, this is called polymerization. Or do you see the word polymer in there? Polymerization is what you could call it. So the large molecules or the large compounds are polymers. And you can see that they're made up of many other smaller ones, which are called monomers. So monomers are the small molecules. You can see just one ring there under monomers. And polymers are when you get a bunch of monomers linked together with each other. That creates a much larger compound. So you can see the polymer there is made up of three monomers. Usually it's going to be more than three, but for the sake of, drawing it on this slide, I just put three. All right, like I said, there's four types of macromolecules that make up living things, and they're carbohydrates, nucleic acids, lipids, and proteins. And during these next several videos, we are going to break it down and talk about each one of those things, the carbs, the nucleic acids, the lipids, and the proteins. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about macromolecules.